evening. How's everybody doing? It's a Wednesday. Shabbos is around the corner. Thank God. It's good to be with you. Hopefully you caught the interview I did earlier with Beth Elise Hawk. Nina and I caught her movie Breaking Bread last week. We both really enjoyed it. Highly recommend it. The interview was a lot of fun. You'll find that on the page. Go see the movie. Who's with us tonight? That's Light of the Darkness. I had to rearrange my desk a little bit for the interview. So trying the microphone on the other side. Hopefully everything is working appropriately. Just a little bit different look. Okay, who's with us on a Wednesday night? Stephen in New Hampshire, Yehudit in Florence, South Carolina, Shandor in the Bronx, Tom says shalom, James in Indianapolis, Tom's in PA, Nancy in North Carolina, Bella in Florida, Sharon in Lebanon, New Jersey, John in Maine, Paula in Chicago, Lindsay in Cincinnati, Melissa in Great Neck, Bill in Mid-Missouri, Leah in LA, and the other Paula from the Great Northwest over there on the YouTube side, Marjorie from Georgia, Lynn in North Texas, and Aoife in Florida. Welcome, everybody. Tonight's episode of AT Daily is sponsored by our good friends Eric and Julie Weissman in honor of Eric's father's birthday. His name is Michael Weissman, Michael Ben Moshe Lazar. He's turning 74. We wish him Yom Huledet Sameach, a very happy birthday. You are a gift to the world because you've created such an awesome family. We love your kids. We love your grandkids. Just wonderful people. Eric, Julie, may you and all your loved ones be showered in blessings. We say amen. And thank you for enabling us to share more Torah with more people around the world. And may our learning tonight accrue to Michael's merit in this world and all worlds. All right. Let's get to it. All right. Where are we holding? We're picking this up at the bottom of 6b. Tonight's daf is Zion, page 7, here in Tractate Chagigah, the 13th volume of the Talmud. These are the laws of the Mitzvah of Appearance and the festival offerings, the offerings we bring on the festival. And as we've seen, there are 3 offerings that are related to the festivals. Offerings of individuals. This is in addition to the communal offerings that must be brought on behalf of the whole nation. But we are commanded, all males, when the temple is standing, to appear 3 times a year, Passover, Shavuos, and Sukkot, in Jerusalem at the temple. And says God, all the males must come, and you shall not appear before me empty-handed. So that implies that one must bring an offering, right? Maybe. Our sages disagree on that. And what is the offering? There's the burnt offering of appearance. A burnt offering is an olah. That's one that is entirely consumed on the altar, as opposed to the Chagigah, the festival peace offering, some of which goes up on the altar and some of which is eaten. So that's like the one that we saw already that we bring on Pesach. We're obligated when the temple is standing to participate in eating the paschal lamb, which could be a goat. But there might not be enough of that particular offering to feed all the people who are registered to have their Seder together. So you have the additional festival peace offerings. And there's the festival offering of rejoicing, the Shlema Simcha. So how do these all work together? Stay tuned. All right, we pick it up at the bottom of 6b. We learned in a Mishna there, that's in a tractate of Mishnayos. It's not one of the tractates of the Bavli, which has Gemara, but one of the tractates of the Mishnah is Peah 1:1, and these are the mitzvahs that have no measure. Now, we read this every day in our prayer books, right? Right after we say the blessings over Torah study, then we study 3 parts of Torah. One from the written Torah itself, and it's the blessing with which the priests would bless the children of Israel, and parents bless their children on Friday nights. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord countenance and be gracious to you. May the Lord favor you and grant you shalom, peace. Then we study something from the Mishnah. And it's this teaching right here. These are, these are the mitzvahs. These are the obligations, the commandments that have no fixed measure. The more you do them, the better. We're about to read that. And then the third one is these are the commandments that one gets reward for fulfilling them in this world, and the principle remains for him in the world to come. And that includes escorting the dead to a funeral, visiting the sick, dowering the bride, honoring one's father and mother, making peace between one's fellow men and between a husband and wife. And the study of Torah is equivalent to them all. So in between those, in the middle one of those three is a teaching from the Mishnah, right? So that way the sages inscribe that in the prayer book every day, as soon as we say a blessing on Torah study, we would read from the Torah, from the Mishnah, and from the Gemara. Okay, so here's the one that's from the Mishnah, and it relates to what we're talking about today. So these are the mitzvahs that have no measure. Produce in the corner of the field, meaning when a farmer in Israel harvests his produce, he should leave the corners of the field unharvested so that the widow and the orphan, the poor, can come by and glean from the field and have what to eat, right? How much do they leave? It doesn't say. The Torah just says leave the corners of the field. The sages came along and defined that one should leave at least 1/60th of the produce in one's field for the poor. But the Torah doesn't give a fixed measure, and you obviously could do more so that you leave more for the poor. So produce in the corner of the field that must be left unharvested, which is given to the poor. That's payah, literally. And the first fruits, the bikurim, right? So the first fruits, you bring that to Jerusalem. And that also serves to decorate the temple during these festivals. And the appearance in the temple on the pilgrimage festivals, right? Making the mitzvah of appearance, fulfilling this obligation, which is what the first mission of our tractate is all about, as well as Gemilut Hasadim, acts of loving kindness, and Torah study. That's the list that we read every morning. But it's about this mitzvah of appearance on the pilgrimage festivals is the reason it's being brought down now. And it says that it has no fixed measure. So Rabbi Yochanan said, we thought to say, and by the way, before we go on, about this acts of loving kindness, it is a positive mitzvah by rabbinic law to visit the sick, comfort mourners, eulogize the deceased, and arrange their funeral and burial, to raise funds for brides in need, and to increase the joy of a bride and groom. These and similar mitzvahs are all acts of loving kindness that have no specified measure. Although the mitzvahs listed here apply by rabbinic law, nevertheless, they are included in the verse in the Torah, you shall love your neighbor as yourself, right? So you shall love your neighbor as yourself. Beautiful teaching. It's Leviticus, what is it? Leviticus 19:18. But that's not, it doesn't mean just, have a nice emotion in your heart, right? Love him with your feet, as it were. Dower the bride, visit the sick, attend the funeral, right? Be there for others when they need you. That's how you love your fellow as yourself. Very important teaching there. So Rabbi Yochanan said, we thought to say that the mitzvah of appearance in the temple, right, showing up on these pilgrimage festivals, does not have a maximum measure. Okay, so there's no measure, but it does have a minimum measure. So we thought that it does have a minimum measure, says Rabbi Yochanan, until we thought that it had a minimum measure, until Rabbi Oshaya, the son of Rabbi, came and taught the mitzvah of appearance has neither a maximum nor a minimum measure. However, the rabbis say the burnt offering of appearance must be worth 1 silver ma, and the festival peace offering 2 silver coins. And we discussed yesterday why the festival peace offering has to be worth a little bit more than the burnt offering. See that on page 6. So then they thought, well, maybe we don't have a minimum measure. No, but there is a minimum measure. You're going to bring a burnt offering for the Lord. It can't be junky. It has to have a minimum value. It's not going to be the type of value that breaks the bank, but you don't come empty-handed and you don't bring dreck, as it were. So what is the mitzvah of appearance to which this Mishnah is referring? What is the mitzvah of appearance? Is it just to show up, or is it to show up and bring an offering? Right? The Torah says, all your males shall appear before me 3 times a year, and they shall not come empty-handed. Are those 2 separate mitzvahs, or do they go together? So what is the mitzvah of appearance to which this Mishnah is referring? And Rabbi Yochanan said, it is the mitzvah of the appearance of one's face in the temple courtyard. One may appear in the temple as often as he likes over the course of the festival. And Reish Lakish said, it is the appearance of one's face in the temple with an offering. There is no measure in this regard, as every time one appears in the temple during a festival, he must bring an offering. Okay, so right away, they're saying a couple extra things. So first of all, is the mitzvah just to show up, be there, come into the temple, check in with God, thank God, watch the procedures going on in the temple? Or is it to show up in the temple on the pilgrimage offering, on the pilgrimage festival, and bring an offering with you? That's the initial question. Then comes the question, okay, you came to Jerusalem, right? You walked all the way to Jerusalem in ancient times. You brought an offering for the Lord and you gave it to him. You brought it up as a sacrifice on the first day of the festival. You're still in Jerusalem for the whole festival. If it's Passover or Sukkot, it's a week-long festival. Okay, do you have to appear in the temple and bring an offering every day of the festival? Is it enough to do it on the first day? If you brought an offering on the first day and then you come back on the second day, do you have to bring an offering again? If you didn't bring an offering on the first day, you do come on the second day, can you bring an offering now and make up for the fact that you didn't bring an offering on the first day? These are the questions in play. So the Gemara explains, on the main, meaning on the first day of the festival, right? So remember, the first day of Passover, that's the festival of Passover. It is, right, a week-long festival, but then we get into Chol HaMoed, the intermediate days, which are still a mitzvah of rejoicing, but you can do some kinds of work, not others. That's what we talked about in our last tractate, about those intermediate days. So do you have to show up in the temple every day? Do you have to bring an offering every day? So the Gemara explains, on the first day of the pilgrimage festival, everyone agrees that the appearance of one's face must be accompanied by an offering. Where they disagree, it is with regard to the rest of the days of the pilgrimage festival, i.e. whether or not one who appears must sacrifice an offering. Okay, so that's where they differ. Everyone agrees on the first day, you got to show up and you got to bring an offering. Then on the next day, if you come to the temple, are you obligated to bring an offering? It seems to be where they disagree, at least at this point in the debate. And furthermore, anywhere, i.e. in any case, that one comes and brings an offering, everyone agrees that we accept it from him, and when they disagree, it is when he comes and does not bring an offering. Is this man obligated to bring an offering or not? So it is certainly permitted to bring an offering every day. Is one obligated after the first day? Can you just show up and pay your respects to God without bringing a sacrifice? The Gemara explains that Rabbi Yochanan holds that the mitzvah, the commandment, is merely the appearance of one's face in the temple courtyard. Therefore, one doesn't need to bring an offering every time he comes to the temple. And Reish Lakish said that the mitzvah is the appearance of one's face with an offering, which means that whenever one comes into the temple, he must bring an offering with him. Reish Lakish raised an objection to the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan, who says that after the first day, you could just show up, you don't have to bring an offering. Reish Lakish brings a proof of why he thinks Rabbi Yochanan is wrong. The verse states, 3 times you shall keep a feast for me in the year, and none shall appear before me empty-handed. So Reish Lakish is reading this as, none shall appear before me empty-handed means that anytime you appear before me, you shouldn't come empty-handed. This teaches that this verse indicates that one must bring an offering whenever he appears in the temple. Rabbi Yochanan answered Reish Lakish, said to him, that obligation applies only on the main day, the first day of the festival, but not on the rest of the festival days. Reish Lakish raised an objection to the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan from a Baraisa. Right? In the Baraisa it says, and none shall appear before me empty-handed, and this teaches that festival pilgrims must appear with animal offerings. Do you say that they must appear with animal offerings? Or perhaps it is only with bird offerings or meal offerings? And it is possible to determine the answer by a logical derivation. It is stated that one must bring a festival peace offering for a commoner to eat, and it is stated that one must bring a burnt offering of appearance, which is for God. So, just as the festival peace offering that is stated for a commoner is referring to animal offerings, so too the burnt offering of appearance that is stated to be sacrificed is holy for God is referring to animal offerings. Okay, what is Reish Lakish saying? He's trying to prove to Rabbi Yochanan that anytime you show up in the temple, you must bring an offering with you. What's his proof? That we find in a Baraisa that you're actually obligated to bring two offerings, one for God and one for people. The one for God is the burnt offering of appearance that is consumed entirely on the altar. The one for people is the festival peace offering, the Chagigah, right? Which is some of it is going to go up on the altar, some of it is going to go to the Kohanim, the priests, and some of it is going to be eaten by the one who brings it and his friends, right? So that's why it's a festival peace offering. And the festival peace offering has to be an animal offering. There are other offerings that we bring, bird offerings and meal offerings. A meal offering is basically flour. But those, it's not enough to bring those because you need to rejoice and share with your friends during the festival. And for our sages, they weren't so into vegetarianism. For our sages, there is no rejoicing without meat. So if you and your friends are going to have meat, you're going to eat an animal offering, there also has to be an animal offering for the Lord. Okay? That's what the Baraisa says. How does this address the question of whether every time you come into the temple during the festival, whether it's the first day or the latter days, that you must bring an offering for the Lord? So Reish Lakish continues, and what are these animal offerings that the festival pilgrims sacrifice to God? The ones for God or the burnt offerings? So do you say that they are burnt offerings, or perhaps it is only that they are peace offerings? And it is possible to determine the answer by logical derivation. It is stated that one must bring a festival peace offering for a commoner, and it is stated that one must bring a burnt offering of appearance, which is solely for God. And just as the festival peace offering that is stated for the commoner is referring to an offering that is fitting for him to eat, i.e. a peace offering, so too the burnt offering of appearance that is stated to be for God is referring to an offering that is fitting for him, i.e. a burnt offering, which is entirely consumed on the altar. And similarly, one can learn by logical derivation that your table should not be full of meat while your master's table, i.e. the altar, is empty. And this indicates that one must sacrifice a burnt offering whenever one appears in the temple, which contradicts the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan. Now, I probably missed something. I guess what he's saying is anytime that you're having an offering for yourself, you have to give an offering to the Lord. Okay, makes sense. And I think the implication is that if you entered the temple on other days of the festival, it would be because you're bringing a festival peace offering, you're going to eat of that, and so you should also bring an offering for the Lord. But he's not really addressing, I thought, Rabbi Yochanan's question, which was, well, if you enter the temple and don't bring any offering, it's okay. You don't have to bring an offering for the Lord, whether it's a peace offering or a burnt offering. You could enter the temple without bringing an offering. But it sounds like Reish Lakish is saying, no, anytime you enter the temple, you're going to bring some kind of an offering. And if you're bringing any kind of an offering, especially one that you're going to partake of, you better also bring one for God. And Reish Lakish raised another objection to the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yosei, the son of Rabbi Yehuda, says, 3 times a year, the Jewish people were commanded to ascend on the pilgrimage festival, on Passover, on Shavuos, and on Sukkot. And they may not appear partially, i.e. that only some of the people should come, because it is stated, all your males. Now, we've seen from this first Mishna, chapter 1, that there's a bunch of people who are exempt from that command for various reasons, but unless they're blind, they're lame, they're too young, they don't have the mental capacity, etc., unless there's one of those kinds of exceptions, then everybody is supposed to come. And it is males, because it's time-bound positive mitzvah. Women are obligated in the mitzvah of rejoicing, but not in the mitzvah of appearance. Okay, we continue. So 3 times all the males are obligated on these festivals, because it is stated, all your males. And they may not appear empty-handed, because it is stated, and none shall appear before me empty-handed. So Rabbi Yochanan said to him, that too is referring to the main day of the pilgrimage festival. Rabbi Yochanan raised an objection to what Reish Lakish is trying to say from a Baraisa. The verse states, all your males shall appear. Although the verse as written can be read, will see, yir'eh, it is actually read, shall be seen, yara'eh. We've seen that before. And from this, we learn that a blind person, even one who's blind in only one eye, is not obligated to appear before the Lord, because the Lord sees him clearly. If he can only see from one eye, he's not seeing in the same way that he's being seen. And so that phrase was used to exempt one who is blind or even blind in one eye. They can come, they're permitted, but they're not obligated, right? But now Rabbi Yochanan is going to use this same verse and the way that it's read as see and shall be seen, because without the vowels in the text, the same letters can spell either will see or shall be seen. So from this, Reish Lakish, Rabbi Yochanan is going to learn something different. He's going to say, the Baraisa derives that just as I, God, come to see you for free, as God has no obligation to bring us an offering when he comes to see us in the temple, so too you may come to see me in the temple for free, i.e., there is no requirement to bring an offering. And the Gemara accepts this objection and therefore proceeds to explain the dispute between Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish in a different manner. Right? So it's actually not going to challenge that Rabbi Yochanan's point is, listen, God doesn't bring us offerings. I mean, he does a lot for us, but okay, he doesn't bring us offerings. And so since God doesn't come to it says God will see us and we will see God and we will be seen by God. God's not bringing us an offering, so we don't have to bring him an offering after the first day for any other subsequent visits during that. So, right, so the appearance of one's face. Where did the law end up on this before we continue? One who comes to the temple courtyard during the festival, after having already sacrificed the burnt offering of appearance, is not obligated to bring another offering. However, if he does so, it is accepted. And this is because there is no measure for the number of burnt offerings of appearance that one may bring. So the law indeed follows Rabbi Yochanan. All agree on the first day of the festival, you show up and you bring the burnt offering. Thereafter, you can show up and you don't have to bring the burnt offering. But now they're going to take the discussion in a little bit different direction. So with regard to anywhere that comes to the temple, anywhere that one comes to the temple courtyard after the initial time on the first day of the festival, and he does not bring an offering, everyone agrees that one enters, appears, and exits without having to bring an offering. So there it is. When they disagree, it is in a case when one comes and does bring an offering. And the Gemara explains. Rabbi Yochanan, who says that the appearance mentioned in the Mishna is referring to the appearance of one's face in the temple courtyard, maintains that it is this appearance itself that has no maximum measure, i.e., one may appear as often as he wishes without an offering. However, there is a maximum measure, i.e., a limited number of offerings that one may bring. only one burnt offering of appearance per festival. And Reish Lakish said, the appearance of one's face means with an offering, as even offerings have no maximum measure, and one may bring as many offerings during the festival as he wishes. So now they've changed the nature of the argument. Right? Now they're saying, okay, all agree on the first day of the festival, you have to show up and you have to bring the burnt offering. Thereafter, all agree that you can show up as often as you want and not bring an offering. You don't have to bring burnt offerings after the first day. Now they're saying, and Rabbi Yochanan says, now they're saying that, and you can't, and there is, that Rabbi Yochanan would say that you can only bring one burnt offering per festival. That is the maximum measure. And Reish Lakish is saying, no, actually, you can come back after the first day and you can bring another burnt offering, and you can do that as many times as you want. Okay. And Rabbi Yochanan raised an objection to the opinion of Reish Lakish, saying, let your foot be seldom in your neighbor's house, lest he be sated with you and come to hate you. Proverb 25:17. Now, why is this referring to a person coming to God's house, coming to the temple? It would seem like it's simply saying, don't spend too much time at your neighbor's house. They're going to get sick of you, right? Guests are like fish. After 3 days, they stink. Don't spend so much time at other people's house. Spend more time in your own home. Be a gracious guest. And part of being a gracious guest is not to be an overly frequent guest. But the sages here on our daf today are going to apply this proverb to visiting the Lord's house, right? Visiting the Holy Temple in Jerusalem when it is standing. So says Rabbi Yochanan about this proverb, let your foot be seldom in your neighbor's house, lest he get sick of you, that it can be inferred from this verse that one should not bring extra gifts, i.e. offerings, to God. Fulfill your obligation, and sometimes too much is too much, right? Sometimes more is not enough. Sometimes just bring the requisite measure, and bringing more than that isn't going to please God more, actually. In some cases, yes. In some cases, no. Now, we saw that with the Mishna we're starting with, that we're studying today, is these have no fixed measure, right? So it would seem like, well, wait a minute. If it has no fixed measure, why are you limiting me to only bringing one burnt offering? How come I can't bring as many as I want? So Rabbi Yochanan says, because we have this proverb, let your foot be seldom in your neighbor's house. You brought the one, you bring too many, it's not going to be such a good thing for God. He's not going to enjoy that you bring so many gifts. And the Gemara responds, well, that proverb, the verse is referring to sin offerings and guilt offerings, right? If you're going to apply that to offerings that you're going to bring to God, let your foot be seldom seen, what they're saying is we can apply it to offerings, but what it means is don't bring too many sin offerings or guilt offerings to God, because they each represent that you made a transgression and need to atone for it by bringing an offering. Better that you shouldn't sin in the first place. Now, this explanation is in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Levi, as Rabbi Levi raised a contradiction between two verses. On the one hand, it is written in Proverbs, let your foot be seldom seen in your neighbor's home, in your neighbor's house. And it is written in Psalm 66, verse 13, I will come into your house with burnt offerings. I will perform for you my vows. So Rabbi Levi explained, this is not difficult. Here the verse is referring to sin offerings and guilt offerings. Let them not be very frequent. And there it is referring to burnt offerings and peace offerings, concerning which one may bring as many as he likes. So that opinion is also taught in a Baraisa. Let your foot be seldom in your neighbor's house. The verse is speaking of sin offerings and guilt offerings. You don't want to bring too many of those. You shouldn't be sinning so much that you need to bring those. So do you say it is referring to sin offerings and guilt offerings? But perhaps this is referring to burnt offerings and peace offerings. And when it says, I will come into your house with burnt offerings, I will perform for you my vows, burnt offerings and peace offerings are mentioned, as these are more pleasant to sacrifice to God. How then do I uphold the meaning of the verse, let your foot be seldom in your neighbor's house? It's because that verse is speaking of sin offerings and guilt offerings. Earlier, the Baraisa taught The people may not appear partially, as the verse states, all your males. And Rav Yosef thought to say, well, one who has 10 sons should not leave 5 to ascend now and the other 5 to come tomorrow. Rather, they should all ascend to the temple together. Now we're on the B side of page 7. And Abaye said to him, this is obvious. Which of his sons would he render sinners, leaving them at home because they're too lazy to ascend? And which of them would he render vigilant, eager to perform the mitzvah at the first opportunity? Rather, for what purpose does the verse, all your males, come? It teaches that which Acherim taught, as it is taught in the Baraisa. We saw this 2 days ago. Acherim say that a scrimper, a melder, a tanner of copper, a melder of copper and a tanner of hides are all exempt from the mitzvah of appearance because their jobs make them very, very smelly. And therefore, if they can't clean themselves up sufficiently that it would bother because when you go up to Jerusalem in a pilgrimage festival, there's massive crowds. And so the people who just can't get themselves clean enough, they are, excused. They don't have to come. They're not obligated because it would be unpleasant and embarrassing for them that they would cause, unpleasant odors for others. And it would be unpleasant for the crowd. So those groups are exempted. And we learn that from all your males. Rather, it would have been enough to say your males or the males, but all your males is saying that everyone who is fit to ascend in a body of people. And that concludes our discussion of Mishnah number 1 here in chapter 1. Mishnah number 2. Burnt offerings that one sacrifices on the intermediate days of the festival must come from non-sacred property, not from sacred property such as second-tithe money. Right? So remember, what is the second tithe? When a farmer in Israel, when the temple is standing, would harvest his produce. So the first 2%, basically, the teruma gedola, that's going to be given to a priest. That's holy food that only priests can eat. Then comes the meiser, right? The tithe, the 10th. And that is given to the Levium, right? Because the tribe of Levi, their job is to tend to the spiritual needs of the people, and they were not given land in Israel. Rather, they receive a tithe from the farmers. And then comes the second tithe, the Meiser Sheni. And that, there's a 7-year cycle. In 4 of the 7 years, the second tithe is used for you to make the pilgrimage and to have either food or money in your hand. You can exchange it for money, and then that basically funds your pilgrimage to Jerusalem. You can use the second tithe so that you have what to eat and rejoice with when you're up in Jerusalem. So you set that money aside, and then in the 3rd and 6th years of the cycle, 2 of the years of the cycle, it's given to the poor. But during the years where you're going to be using it for your needs when you ascend to Jerusalem for the pilgrimage festival, it's like you've already set that money aside, right, for that consecrated purpose of enabling you to rejoice in the festival when you go to Jerusalem. Why can't you use that money to fund the burnt offering that you're going to give to God when you're in Jerusalem for that pilgrimage festival and fulfilling the mitzvah of appearance? It seems pretty closely related, but the burnt offering for God, it really has to come from you and not from money that you've already consecrated for this related but not the same purpose. But the peace offerings may be, so the festival peace offering and the festival offering of rejoicing, those may come from the second tithe. With regard to the festival peace offering sacrificed on the first day of the festival of Passover, Beis Shammai say it must come from non-sacred property, and Beis Hillel say it may be brought even from the second tithe. In general, Israelites fulfill their obligation to eat peace offerings of rejoicing with their voluntary vows and gift offerings that are donated during the year and sacrificed on the festival. right? So you might put aside money or put aside an animal to eat and rejoice with when you're up in Jerusalem on the pilgrimage festival, but you wouldn't slaughter it until, obviously until during the festival. But it was normal for people to put aside money for these voluntary gift offerings, not from the Meiser Sheni. The second tithe is really for you to eat the rest of the time. Like, not every meal is a festive meal, right? You're going to be there for a week. You're going to need breakfast in addition to dinner, right? So there's other needs that the Meiser Sheni fulfills, but people would also set aside animals and money for these festival peace offerings during the year. And sacrifice on the festival, and likewise with animal tithes. So there's also, that you would, well, let's just go on. And the priests fulfill their obligation of rejoicing with the meat of sin offerings and guilt offerings, right? A person who sins, right, when he makes a sin offering at the temple, that's not a festival offering for him. That's not an offering for rejoicing for him. But the parts of it that are eaten by the priest didn't sin. They're just receiving the parts of these offerings that are set aside for priests. They're mentioned specifically in the Torah, and that's part of the rejoicing of the priests, right? And remember, all of the priests are serving during the festivals because there's so many people, much more than on a regular day in Jerusalem. Thousands and thousands of people, hundreds of thousands, millions of people go to Jerusalem. All the priests are working, and part of their portion for the hard work that they do all during that week is receiving the portions of certain offerings for their enjoyment. And the priests fulfill their obligation of rejoicing with the meat of sin offerings and guilt offerings and with firstborn offerings, right? The Behor, right? The firstborn male offspring of any particular female animal, kosher animal. As the priests receive a portion of these, and with the breast and thigh of peace offerings to which the priests are also entitled. However, the priests do not fulfill their obligation with birds. We don't know if it's, however, I don't know if we're talking about the priests or everybody, do not fulfill their obligation with birds, i.e. a bird sacrificed as a sin offering, nor with meal offerings, as only the eating of meat constitutes rejoicing, right? Without basar, there is no simcha. Without meat, there is no joy, according to the sages. That was now the Gemara in chapter 1. When the Mishna states that the burnt offerings sacrificed during the intermediate days of the festival may come from non-sacred property, this leads to the surprising conclusion that on the festival, they may even come from the second tithe. And the Gemara asks, why should this be the case? The burnt offering is an obligatory matter, and that any obligatory matter with regard to offerings may come only from non-sacred property that was consecrated expressly for this purpose alone, not from property that was previously consecrated for another purpose, right? So any offering that you're obligated to bring, like a sin offering because you committed a sin and have to bring that offering, or the burnt offering of appearance because you're obligated to come and not come empty-handed, so that's an obligatory offering. The Meiser Sheni, that second tithe that you set aside so that you would have food to eat when you're in Jerusalem for this festival, that is a different purpose than fulfilling your obligation to bring the burnt offering of appearance. And if you would say that this teaches us that burnt offerings may come, i.e. may be sacrificed on the intermediate days of the festival, whereas on the festival they may not come at all, in accordance with whose opinion is this Mishnah? It is in accordance with the opinion of Beis Shammai. We follow Beis Hillel on this. But Beis Shammai were saying, oh, well, maybe you shouldn't be slaughtering animals on a festival, right? On Shabbos, you don't slaughter. They will slaughter offerings that are communal offerings for the population, right? For the whole nation of Israel. There is a Sabbath offering, right? There's the daily offering that's brought every day, including Shabbos. And there's the additional offering, the Musaf, of Shabbos. That would be slaughtered on Shabbos. Otherwise, no slaughtering and no cooking, right? We don't cook on Shabbos. on a festival, it is permitted to cook. All the laws of Shabbos apply in festivals, except that on festivals we can cook for the needs of the festival. So we saw this earlier in our journey, but you might have thought that with regards to a festival peace offering, okay, since we're going to eat some of it, yeah, so we can slaughter it, and then we can cook it, and then we're going to eat it. But for a burnt offering that is entirely consumed on the altar, no human is going to eat of that. Therefore, why would we allow an individual offering as opposed to a communal offering, which requires slaughtering, on a festival when there's going to be no eating of it? That's why Beis Shammai say you shouldn't bring individual burnt offerings on the festival. But Beis Hillel say, no, we do bring them. And we learned in a Mishnah at Beitza 19a, a tractate we covered, that Beis Shammai say one brings peace offerings on a festival, but one does not place his hands on them, as placing one's hands on an animal on a festival is prohibited by rabbinic law. However, the semicha, right, laying your hands on an offering before it's actually brought. However, one may not sacrifice burnt offerings at all, as they are not eaten, and slaughtering on a festival is permitted only for human needs, right, for eating a meal on the festival. But Beis Hillel say one brings both peace offerings and burnt offerings on a festival, and one does place his hands on them. And it is unlikely that an anonymous Mishnah would follow the opinion of Beis Shammai, whose rulings are not accepted as halacha. So the Gemara answers, well, this Mishnah that we're discussing now is incomplete, and this is what is teaching. Burnt offerings brought as a fulfillment of one's vow or as gift offerings, they may come on the intermediate days of the festival. However, on the festival day itself, like the first day of the festival, they may not come. And the burnt offering of appearance comes even on the festival, but when it comes, it may come only from non-sacred property because it is obligatory, meaning not second-tithe, not something that was set aside for something else, but only an offering that was set aside for this specific purpose, to be the burnt offering of appearance. And peace offerings of rejoicing may come even from the second tithe, as they're all about rejoicing in the festival, and that would be included in the Meiser Sheni in the second tithe. And with regard to the festival peace offering that's brought on the first day of Passover, Beis Shammai say it may come only from non-sacred property, and Beis Hillel say it may come even from the second tithe. Right, so that's the festival peace offering, the Chagigah, that accompanies the Pesach, because the Pesach might not be enough food to feed everybody that's in that group. So you have this additional offering to make sure everybody is going to be sated when they have the Passover dinner. I'm almost done, so you got questions or comments, get them in. And that opinion is also taught in a Baraisa. Burnt offerings brought as a fulfillment of one's vow or as gift offerings may come on the intermediate days of the festival, but on the festival day itself they may not come. And burnt offerings of appearance comes even on the festival, but when it comes, it may come only from non-sacred property, not from the second tithe. Peace offerings of rejoicing may come even from the second tithe. And with regard to the festival peace offering brought on the first day of the festival of Passover, Beis Shammai say it may come only from non-sacred property, and Beis Hillel say it may even come from the second tithe. So that's the Gemara sort of working out its analysis and then citing a Baraisa, which teaches exactly the same thing. And the Gemara asks, what is different about the festival peace offering brought on the first day of the festival of Passover that we should have a unique law for it? And Rav Ashi said this emphasis on the specific date teaches us that for the festival peace offering of the 15th, i.e. the pilgrimage festival offerings brought on the first day of Passover, yes, this restriction applies. However, for the festival peace offering of the 14th, the one that's slaughtered on the afternoon before Passover begins, at the same time as the Paschal lamb is slaughtered before Passover begins, none No, the limitation is not enforced. So if the Paschal lamb was too small for a group, they would bring an additional peace offering so that the Paschal lamb could be eaten when one was full. This offering was called the festival peace offering of the 14th of Nissan. Since this offering is not obligatory, everyone agrees that it may be purchased even with the second tithe money. And apparently, he holds that the festival peace offering of the 14th does not apply by Torah law, and therefore one may bring it even from second tithe funds. Because if it was an obligatory offering, then you could not use Meiser Sheni to pay for it. All right. Let's see if there's questions or comments. Chagigah 7. Okay, Tom. But if you've appeared with an offering, have you or haven't you fulfilled the obligation? If you've done it the first day and I do it again on the second day, are my two offerings equal to your one offering? Okay, so first of all, it seems like we so let's review. All sages, all the opinions agree that on the first day, you must come and you must bring an offering. And if for some reason you didn't bring an offering, the later days is an opportunity to make up for the fact that you missed on the first day. Then all agree that you don't have to bring offerings after the first day. You can just come, and you don't have to bring an offering. But if you do bring an offering, it is accepted. You're saying if you've done it the first day and I do it again on the second day, is my two offerings equal to your one offering? It seems like I feel like that's where we should not get involved in saying, are my prayers better than his prayers, right? Prayers have replaced offerings. So is God going to listen to the guy who's like super articulate and really davens beautifully, and he's not going to listen to the guy who mumbles and talks fast? We don't know. We don't know. We can't compare our prayers to others, and I don't think we compare our offerings to the offerings of other people, right? So people, you have to fulfill your obligation. Once you have fulfilled your obligation, they're saying, Rabbi Yochanan was saying, don't bring additional offerings. Better not to. Reish Lakish says, bring as many as you want. There is no fixed measure. And, if it's going to bring you closer to God and is a way for you to thank God and show your appreciation to God for all the good that he has done in your life, so be it. But I think we're going to be wary of saying that somebody did more than somebody else. We have to be very careful about making statements like that. Sharon, what would be the reason one would continue bringing offerings? Seems like it could be seen as pretentious, right? So there would be a reason for Rabbi Yochanan's opinion, don't overdo it. Good. David, why do you refer to the Israelites as the Jewish people? Isn't that an anachronism? The Samaritans are Israelites, but are not Jews. This seems to be a general question. I'm not sure that I've been referring to the Israelites or not the Israelites. But, in terms of the Bnei Yisrael, right, the children of Israel. So this is, a term that's used in the Torah to refer to the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, who are obligated in the Torah, who are the Jews. And I think when we say Israelite, I think we usually mean the children of Israel like the biblical term. Israelis, that's a different word, right? When you're talking about Israelis, 100%. There are non-Jewish Israelis. There are Muslim Israelis. There are, there are Baha'i Israelis. There are Christian Israelis. There are Druze Israelis. So absolutely, when we talk about Israelis, we're not only talking about Jews. But when we say Israelites, that really is talking about Jews, the children of Israel, the biblical concept. Sharon, it seems incongruous to me that a sin offering should be considered rejoicing for others. The priest would seem to be encouraging others to sin for their personal benefit. No, I would disagree with that. I think it's just that the Torah set aside a portion of the sin offering for the priest to eat. They're not going to encourage people to sin because they're going to have more than they need, I'm sure, especially on a festival. I mean, like, so much is coming there in terms of the festival peace offerings that they get a piece of, etc. And I think that in terms of the portion of the sin offering that's eaten by the priest, maybe it's worth remembering that it's not like the priests are sin eaters, right? I've seen that in other traditions. They have this idea that, that some people sort of, by eating, kind of ingest somebody else's sin and relieve those people of their sin. That's not what's going on here at all. Recall that the ones who, first of all, the people who are bringing a sin offering does not atone for an intentional transgression. It's only for not the unwitting, but the unintentional. Unwitting means you didn't even know you made a sin. But unintentional is it comes to your attention, like you committed a transgression because you were unaware it was Shabbos, for example. Unwitting is like it was out of your control. But you just made a mistake and you came to do the transgression. For that, you can bring a sin offering. If you sinned on purpose, said, well, I know it's a sin, but I'm going to do it anyway, there is an atonement for that, but it's not bringing a sin offering. So it's not that because the priests partake a certain part of the sin offering for themselves, a sort of part of their payment for serving in the temple, that they would then encourage people to do more sins so they could get more of that offering, is the way I read it. But you might be right. I mean, that's my view. Okay, that's what I've got for us today. With God's help, we'll be together again tomorrow night, Thursday, regular time, 6 p.m. Pacific, for Chagigah, page 8. Have a great evening.